Kaz Grala is the winner, the youngest driver to win at Daytona in NASCAR National Touring Series history.
Joey Stone just picked up his first career win. Holy cow, what a finish.
Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of All Clear here, and we have a special guest with us today, the first guest ever for the show. She is well known for all her media work in NASCAR, but is her father as well, Dr. Jerry Punch as well, and she is carrying on the legacy of her father in the NASCAR world. Jessie Punch is here with us today. Jessie, thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I am so honored that I'm your first guest. I feel very honored, very blessed. Thanks, guys. I'm doing well.
Yeah, of course. We're happy to have you here and everything. And Jessie, of course, we brought you on the show here because your knowledge of the sport is incredible. You know, we talked about how you took a lot of that knowledge from your father, who Dr. Jerry Punch, who is well known in the world of NASCAR for his knowledge and his broadcasting days, etc. And you are carrying on that legacy. So your knowledge is just very, very vast when it comes to all of this right now. So I wanted to ask you, though, and Kaz is here with us too and everything, you know, let's dive a little bit about your background. You know, I'm not gonna say you kind of came out of nowhere, but, you know, like, you know, your dad did so much, and then you kind of told your dad, it's like, hey, I got this, don't worry, watch what I'm gonna do here. You know, you host the Pace Slap and everything, which is an amazing show. I recommend anyone who's listening to this and watching to tune into that. She always has a great time over there as well. But how did you get here? You know, what was the grind like to get up here? You know, I see you all the time at the racetrack on the big screen, pumping up the crowd and everything whenever I'm in the grandstands and all that, you know, and all your stuff on NASCAR. How did you get here? What's that all about?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate the kind words, because to say that my knowledge is impressive is very appreciative, because I take a lot of pride in knowing the sport and trying to keep myself updated on everything that's going on. And of course, like you mentioned, everything that I know, I learned from my dad, which has been the biggest blessing, because he is the most incredible role model. So my notebook, I'm still very much growing and learning and building, but I've been blessed to have been passed on an entire library worth of knowledge from what I want to do in my career. So, but as far as how I got here, I went to Clemson. I graduated in the spring of 2016. Go Tigers. And then following my time at Clemson, I moved out to Denver, Colorado, and I actually worked in college athletics for about 2 years. I worked for the Western Athletic Conference. It's a small Division I conference out there. And I covered just about everything from swimming and diving to basketball, every sport you can think of, track and fields, tennis, baseball, all that fun stuff. But not racing. But I knew I wanted to get back to the East Coast. And of course, having grown up in racing, I was passionate about it. So when an opportunity with NASCAR was out there, I applied like every other normal person, and I went through the job process. And, you know, I just think that some people think that you just make a call and it all happens. And that's really not how it works. I had to work to get here too, and went through all the same steps that everybody else did. So now I'm with NASCAR. This is my 5th season. Like you said, you see me at the track. I have like 5 different jobs, and I love every one of them. And the Pace Lap as well, before I forget, you can catch it on Thursday nights on MAV TV. We have Kaz on all the time. It's a party, so I definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a great show, and everything you do is you're definitely rising up the ranks, and I'm excited to see where you go with the sport here as the years go on. And speaking of Kaz, I know you're over here, my guy. How are we doing today?
Hello. Back for another week.
Back for another week on the grind, baby, on the grind.
I'm not fired yet, so far.
Yeah, right. So, you know, you just talked about how you had the Pace Lab with Kaz and everything. Now, people who are watching this show for the first time or seeing this episode may wonder, it's okay. Like, how did Jessie get on the show? Well, funny thing is, Jessie, myself, and Kaz all know each other. Like, you know, Jessie and Kaz obviously do a lot of things with the Pace Lab. Jessie and I know each other remotely through eNASCAR, actually, which is pretty wild as well. So I'll dive into, you know, how do we all know each other here? Who wants to start that one off here?
Kaz, I'll let you take it.
I can start that off.
Okay, all right.
So it's Jessie's 5th year working in NASCAR, and I'm pretty sure that I worked with her right in her first year. If not, it was early in the 2nd year. So we've known each other for probably about 5 years as well, because I was a guest on the Pace Lap back when it was in its infancy, which.
Oh, did we lose Cass for a second? Uh-oh.
Basically, what I can finish in that is that it was rough. Season 1 was rough, and Kaz was around for the rough times.
It was definitely different than it is now. They've grown it tremendously, and so that was back in probably 2017. We've been working together, and I've even been a guest on her podcast actually. So this is funny and perfectly fitting here to be reciprocal.
You were my first guest. Funny enough.
True. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Look how it's all turning around. Look how it's all coming back together just like that. That's how the world works. That's hilarious.
Full
and then
circle.
exactly full circle. Which you do need to require a pace lap to go full circle, by the way. So I'm just saying it all makes sense here. But you mentioned that as well, and talking about the eNASCAR here, how you and I know each other a little bit. You actually have some eNASCAR background, Jessie. Yeah, that was a time. Do you want to dive into that? How you and I know each other?
Yeah, I'll dive into it. I have very little eNASCAR experience. Basically, I filled in, I believe, once or twice for Hannah Newhouse on those eNASCAR broadcasts there in the inaugural season of the Pro Invitational Series. That was wild. Okay, first of all, Kaz has seen me play eNASCAR. He's also seen me do iRacing, so he can imagine how that went. Calling gaming is a total different world. Now, I will say I got to do some iRacing broadcasts in the off season of this year. A lot better than it was a couple seasons ago when I tried eNASCAR, but no, it was fun. And I got to know a lot of you guys, which definitely was fun to meet some people within the racing community.
I think I remember you called the Daytona race, which was the last race to make it into the playoffs. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And I remember going back and watching, and I think it was you and was it Chris Wilner I think it was Chris Wilner who was up there, and you guys had the camera on me. And I was like so focused because I'm trying to get RCR into the playoffs that race. And I'm like trying to figure out how am I going to get up to the front here. And the microphone comes on because this was the early stages, right? So things were not going fluid the whole time. So it wasn't supposed to happen. But whenever you guys showed cameras of the drivers, we weren't supposed to hear you guys. Well, we heard you guys, and I'm here focusing, getting ready for the restart to happen. And then they're like, there's Sloppy Joe over there. I wonder if he can crack a smile for us and everything. Just something like that. And I'm like, oh, they want a smile or a thumbs up. And I'm like that. I literally did it like that. And Jessie and Chris are like, there it is. There's the smile and all that stuff. So just some funny moments there. But going back, you did a great job though. eNASCAR side when it comes to broadcasting back then was tough, right? Because you don't have multiple cameras you don't have multiple angles of what you're seeing, right? It's like, here's the camera, then here's what you're seeing right here. You know, it's like on the spot commentating. So for a rookie in that, you did great. You did an awesome job right there. So we kind of dived into how we all know each other. Of course, yeah. We kind of dived into like how we all know each other and everything. And I consider us all as young guns in what we do and everything. But speaking of the young guns strike again at Phoenix. It doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. Chase Briscoe picks up his first career win for the Stewart-Haas in that number 14 car. Long ways coming. We all knew it was going to happen at some point. Did it happen? Did it happen sooner than we thought though? Like that's one of those things that's coming from this race now. So let's talk about this for a second, guys. So Chase Briscoe wins. The youth movement is starting to kind of fully take fruition here. We've seen Tyler Reddick up there, Ross Chastain, Chase Briscoe. Of course, you got Bowman, Byron, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, all those guys. Is this the race that's showing that the young gun movement is fully in effect here?
I mean, I think you're going to see that here early with this next gen car, because I think the younger drivers are more used to adapting to new racing vehicles, because as you work your way up from whatever you started into the Cup Series, obviously you go through a lot of different cars. You probably race things on the side. You're used to moving around. Meanwhile, all those guys like Harvick, like Hamlin, that have been in Cup for literally the entire time that you've been trying to come up to Cup, well, that's all they've been racing. So they're a little bit more used to and adjusted to the way the Cup cars were, and that's not truly translating right now to what the new Cup cars are like. So I think that we kind of expected coming into the season you'd see some young guys being able to adapt more quickly and be on the front end of this next gen change. And we've seen that. We've absolutely seen that so far. I think we've had some guys running top 3, top 5 in dominating races that you probably wouldn't have expected coming into the race. I mean, it's Phoenix. If you told me a Stewart-Haas car dominated Phoenix, I'd say, well, yeah, obviously, Harvick. That's not what we saw. We saw Briscoe, which was really, really impressive. So I don't think that this is the last we've seen of these young guys. And there's been a number of young guys that finished well at Phoenix that are going to get their wins 100%. Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, they're going to be in victory lane this year. We don't know when, but they keep running like they have been the last few weeks, and it's going to be soon.
Yeah, Kaz, you made the exact point that I was going to make, was the ability to adapt to a new race car and changes. And some of these veterans, you know, although they're very well on their way to being Hall of Famers, haven't had to do that in a lot of years. So to not, you know, reiterate your point, I think, you know, it's interesting though, when you look at the full-time field, I think there's less than 10 drivers full-time in Cup that are over the age of 30. So it's tough. Like, you're looking at young guns, you're looking at a lot of the field, but then you still weigh this balance of the best of the best, the Kyle Bushes, the Kevin Harvicks, these Denny Hamlins, you know, and then you've got young guys like Tyler Reddick out there. So it's a really tough comparison to make, but it's definitely an interesting study to continue to watch this season.
It's been fun to watch. It's been really fun to watch. And just as you mentioned, Kaz, of this top 10, you got Chase Briscoe in first, Chastain second, Reddick in third. Ryan Blaney is in P4 right there. Daniel Suarez, another top 10 for Daniel Suarez, who's starting to his team's starting to come to fruition. Trackhouse, that's a story for another day. Trackhouse is doing some incredible things right now for a second-year program. Chris Buescher finishing 10th as well. There's a lot of young guns up here that finished in the top 10, and there was some obviously that didn't get a result. Chase Elliott was up there. You know, Byron was up there for most of the race as well. Bowman looked solid. Kyle Larson had that, I think it was a loose valve issue as well that ended his race. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see this develop as the season goes on with this brand new car, let alone with the Lamar Speedway, which is a brand new configuration, new car. Who knows what's going to happen over there as well, you know. But as we're talking about this youth movement, kind of getting back into the whole Chase Briscoe discussion here, do we see this win from Briscoe as possibly a sign of the next leader of Stewart-Haas Racing? Because I would imagine when Tony Stewart signed Chase Briscoe to this 14 car, it wasn't just a let's see how you do, kid. It was more so Tony Stewart, I think, seeing the potential in Chase Briscoe to be a leader of this organization whenever Kevin Harvick decides to hang it up. So do you see this as something that's coming into fruition down the road after this win?
I mean, I think it could be. I think it's between him and Custer. They're the young guys at Stewart-Haas, and I think it could go either way. Right now, Briscoe kind of flexed his muscle this weekend a little bit, but Custer may do so next weekend. We don't really know. So I think that's the cool part, is how many unknowns there are with this next gen car. And we're talking about who could be the next guy at Stewart-Haas. Well, Harvick may win the next 7. We don't know what he's still got in him. You know, he may have something click with this next gen car and all of a sudden dominate the entire summer stretch of the season. So I think it's too early to tell, but you know what I'm thinking? If I'm Briscoe, I don't know if I'll be the top guy at Stewart-Haas this year, but I'm the top guy at Stewart-Haas this week. And I think that's kind of how you got to take this season, is week by week.
Well, and the thing about Stewart-Haas right now as a whole is that they're really strong. And when you're coming off of a season like they had last year, it's very impressive and almost surprising to see the consistency and strength that they've had in the first 4 races. You look at guys like Eric Almirola, the worst finish he's had is 12th. I mean, that's impressive. Now, I know, again, to your point, he's retiring at the end of this season. Kevin Harvick had a strong run this weekend, but that was much needed. You know, that 4 team has been not in victory lane in a very long time, and you have to imagine frustrations building. But Chase Briscoe, I think what adds to the conversation there is that we all knew a first win was coming. was it coming at Phoenix? I probably would have said no. And I talked to Chase after the race and he said, absolutely not. There was no way in hell I thought I was going to get my first win at Phoenix. And here we are. So to that point, he's definitely going to have more wins and more success come, considering his first one came as a surprise. He's got more confidence in him moving forward this season.
Let's not forget all of Chase Briscoe's top 10s, I think I heard this, came on road courses last year. So if you had assumed coming into the year, Chase Briscoe is going to have a breakthrough win, stats would show, oh, that's probably on a road course. So I think there's a lot more that we're going to hear from him this year on tracks that we have yet to see. We don't know what this Cup field is going to look like on a road course right now because we see the teams and the drivers running well on ovals right now. That could be the same, but it absolutely doesn't have to be the same on the road courses. You may see a complete 180 from some teams. So I don't know if Stewart-Haas is going to be really strong on the road courses this year, but if they are, I don't think I would bet against Briscoe. He's really taken to the road course as well.
Well, let's not forget, too, who also almost won the Indianapolis road course last year as well. And it was Chase Briscoe, to many people's surprise, which was one that no one really expected until we saw that 14 car doing very, very well. And if what you say is true, Jesse, where he says he absolutely had no idea that he was going to be able to win this race, and let alone he ran top 5, top 6 all race long. And when the moment counted, he was up there defending off the 2020 champion in great fashion until that caution came out. So he was up there with a great car and defended against some really talented drivers and some great equipment to get that first win at Phoenix. And, you know, like Kaz just said, if that is true, that those top 10s came at road courses last year, and this surprise win at Phoenix, and it was based off speed. If I'm the field, I'm looking at that 14 of Chase Briscoe as an underdog for the entire season. I mean, he's already in the playoffs now with this win, let alone what can he do with the road courses on the schedule in the playoffs and everything. If this 14 team keeps it up, they might be an underdog to make it to that Final Four. You never know. And that's the beauty of this sport and this new car. We don't know what on earth is going to happen in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks or even 5 months down the road. You know, we talked about Briscoe leading an organization with Stewart-Haas, and right now it's down to Custer and Briscoe, like, you know, showing his strong hand right now, like, hey, I'm here and I'm going to help this team get back into championship winning ways and whatnot. And I guess that kind of leads to my next question here, Jesse. And Stewart-Haas at the beginning of the season necessarily didn't have the winning speed in these cars, but now we're starting to see Kevin Harvick back to his old ways at Phoenix. He ran top 3, 4 all race long and looked like he had a really good car. Chase Briscoe looked good. Cole Custer looked solid. Eric Almirola looked good. Is Stewart-Haas finally catching up? Because after their horrendous year last year, do you think now they're finally catching up to the field?
See, it's a tough question when you say catching up, because I feel like, and Kaz, you can speak to this more than any of us, at the beginning of the season, there was more of a clean slate. Mm-hmm. So it's tough to look at last year and this year and say, are you catching up? Who's ahead? I look at the start of this season as everybody's on the same playing field, and it's like a space race. Who's going to get it figured out first, and who's going to find victory lane first, and eventually who's going to be holding that trophy at Phoenix? And we're going to see a lot of ebb and flow, I think, through the season, because for as much as we're looking at these first 4 races and trying to grasp an idea of trends and what teams got it figured out, like Kaz mentioned, we still have road courses to look at. We have long summer stretches of intermediate tracks. We've got multiple short tracks in a row that we're going to have to try to figure out how to turn over in the weeks when you have heavy damage. There's just so many variables that are coming into play that to say Stewart-Haas is catching up, I don't know, but to say that they're figuring things out here early on in this season and have definitely figured out that West Coast swing, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it is going to be ebbing and flowing, like you said, so much this year that even a team, let's say somebody won the first 5 races of the season, the same team, same driver won those. They can't exactly sit and be comfortable and say, oh, you know, we're going to be title favorites. We're going to be contenders. Mm-hmm. If you stay at that same level with your next gen program through the end of the year, you're going to be a back marker by the playoffs. Every team right now is figuring these next gen cars out so quickly, and it's going to be a space race all year of who can edge out the other one. And week to week, that's going to be changing. They're going to be figuring these cars out so quickly. So I really do think it's week to week. I think Briscoe and Stewart-Haas can feel really great this week, but it could be a reality check in the next week or two for them. And they may have to go back to the drawing board on their next-gen designs and their setups and reinvent the wheel 2 more times before we even get to the playoffs. I think every team's going to be in that situation. So I'd say right now for the first few races, if I had to pick a team that I felt like looked the strongest this far, it'd probably be Hendrick. But that could look completely different here in 4 months. So I think we just have to really tune in week to week and see how things are. And once we get to the race before the playoffs, then maybe we can say who we think will be strong in the playoffs. But until then, it's anybody's game. Everyone's still in it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, how you think everyone's in it. And that kind of leads on to our next segment of the show here, where we title it as "There's No Certain Favorites Yet," which is a great follow-up to what we just talked about right here. And I guess I'll open up this question to you guys here. And could we see the most winners in a season this year in the NASCAR Cup Series? Because I think we're on the right path now, because I believe it's 4 different winners right now, I believe, for the season to start off with. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think it could be. Last year, they were talking about early on, are we going to see 16 different winners this year, because they take 16 for the playoffs? That was a topic of discussion for the early part of the season last year, because you saw so much parity between the teams. The playing field was fairly level. There was nobody completely dominating. And with this next gen cars, we've been discussing for weeks now, it's that and then some. It is absolutely going to be anyone's game. So with that said, yeah, you could see a lot of different winners. You could see each driver from each organization winning for the first 5 months of the year. And is it possible that we could have a 17th winner this year, somebody that wins a race and doesn't make the playoffs? I suppose probably isn't likely, but it's not out of the question. And if there was ever a year that was going to happen, I'd say this year is the best chance that we've had yet to be able to see that. So I love that, because if you have a driver that wins a race, you still don't get to sit back and relax and just, cruise until you get to the playoffs. You have to be driving hard every weekend, developing this next gen car, whether you need the points or the wins or you don't. No matter how many wins you have, you need to stay on it to make sure your team is making the best next gen car that they can before the playoffs. So yeah, if I want a race, I'm thinking about next week. I'm thinking about how I can win the next race, because once you win 2, then you're locked into the playoffs for sure, no matter what could possibly happen. But I'm looking at really just trying to build that notebook for the playoffs. That's going to be the most important thing.
Yeah, Kaz, I absolutely agree with you on that. And I think, one of the most exciting things about what we're seeing right now early on in the season with teams trying to figure out this next gen car is that, and again, I'm not a driver, you can speak to this more than I could, but we're seeing driver talent on display right now more than we have ever, or at least in a very long time. And that's because teams are still trying to figure out this car. So a lot of it is relying on talent, or also driver mistakes. I mean, we saw Denny Hamlin just kind of zone out there for a second and try to shift in an H pattern getting on pit road a couple weeks ago. So there's things like that are happening that it's really putting success or lack of success into the driver's hands, which I think is very interesting. So right now things are kind of up in the air, but in an effort to make this conversation a little more interesting and play devil's advocate, I will say, Kaz, you made the point. This time last year, we were having the same conversation about, are we going to see a lot of different winners? And then something clicked with that 5 team, and Kyle Larson had 10 wins, and we had a dominant champion, And so similarly, Hendrick Motorsports, something could click over there as an organization, and they figure out this next gen car and they start rocking and rolling with it. And it's Hendrick and Bowman and they all start finding victory lane. Elliott starts finding victory lane. I don't know. So in an effort of playing devil's advocate, I do agree with you, Kaz, that we're going to see a lot of different winners, but it's NASCAR. Who knows?
You're right. We're talking about not knowing what to expect and taking that in the form of probably a lot of winners. But we don't expect one team to dominate the whole season. Maybe that happens, because that's also unexpected. It's possible. In Formula One, for so many years, you had Hamilton winning in a Mercedes every weekend. You would tune into the race and you would see him on pole and you would know he wins the race before they even took the green flag. It was just so obvious. We haven't had that in NASCAR. There's been much more even competition, anybody's game every weekend for decades, really. Could that change with this next gen car for a year? Probably not going to sustain, but could there be a team that hits on something incredibly good on this next gen car that is just head and shoulders above the rest of the competition for a large enough portion of the year that it puts them ahead and win the championship easily? Maybe. That could definitely happen.
Well, and on a much smaller scale, is that exactly what we're talking about with Stewart-Haas? I mean, the organizational, all four cars, Custer is struggling a little bit, but given those three cars having consistent success on a much smaller scale, maybe that's an early example of what we're talking about.
I'll say this though about this car and the season so far is I don't think a team is going to find that one thing until right around the summertime, because this car is just so brand new. And we've seen these teams like at the beginning when we went to Auto Club, right? We saw, besides Tyler Reddick, we saw Hendrick Motorsports was just flat out dominant at Auto Club. You know, they looked really, really good for the most part. Then we move on to Las Vegas and everything. And that was a good mixture of cars. Joe Gibbs seemed to really shine there and everything. Then we move on to Phoenix, where I'll be honest, I couldn't even tell. Ryan Blaney definitely had, I think, the most dominant car there. Even on old tires, he was ahead of Chase Elliott by 2 seconds for most of the run, which was absolutely crazy. But when you're just kind of looking at everything, like even though you said Kyle Larson, you know, won 10 races last year, even though he won those 10 races, during those wins or even when he was trying to figure stuff out, Hendrick Motorsports was still the team that was just flat out showing that they were the best team. Over here, though, I'm seeing various teams up there at the front. I mean, look at Trackhouse. Ross Chastain finished, second, 2 weeks in a row or so like that. No one thought that was going to happen. Tyler Reddick looks as if, you know, he and Austin Dillon both are bringing RCR back to their glory days in the early 2000s, et cetera, when they had Kevin Harvick and whatnot, when they were really, really good. They're showing a lot of shine over there. You know, 2311, I'm not going to say they're there yet, but Kurt Busch is starting to figure it out too in that 45. He's finished really consistent lately too. So just kind of following up on that, the reason why I think we could get those 16 winners this season is because, one, we have a brand new car, right? We have a brand new car. These teams are still figuring it out, but I don't think that one team is going to find that special ingredient until in the late summer months, only because a lot of these teams are doing the same thing, right? We haven't seen something like this since the Car of Tomorrow days in 2007, 2008, you know, let alone Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson went on to have a dominant year in 07 when that car debuted, but it was a part-time season. Gordon won, I think, like 5 races. Jimmy won like 6, right? So with this brand new car, I see something like that happening. I think the top driver is going to win maybe 5 races, maybe 6. I don't see it going to a 10-win season or anything like that. So I think we are going to get those 16 winners, and it's going to be exciting to see if we do get a 17 winner, like you mentioned. That's just my gut feeling on it and whatnot. But, I don't know. I like to play devil's advocate too, Jessie. You know, I do. I like to say 16 winners and see how it goes.
Well, in any opportunity to argue with Kaz is an opportunity that I'll take. So,
but let me say this though: if I'm an engineer at one of these teams, I'm trying to find that special ingredient to start dominating right now, because come late summer, you've had hundreds of engineers in this industry working on it now for the better part of the year. Is there something that they haven't thought of that you thought of? Right now is the best opportunity to try to dominate, because you can get ahead of the curve. I am a firm believer in, if they figure out something to dominate, other teams will figure it out. It just might take a week or 2 or a month or a third of the year. You may be able to build up a bank of wins before they all catch you, but they're going to catch you. So the sooner you can do it, the better, because if you're looking to start dominating after everyone's been working on this for 8 months, I think it's going to be harder to find that one thing. You may find it, so did everybody else. You're not dominating. You need to find it today.
And like you said earlier, Kaz, now more than ever, teams are not getting comfortable. No matter how many times you've seen victory lane, you are still pushing to find speed.
Yeah, and these teams are definitely pushing to find speed and everything. But we got to ask this question, though. And I know we're 5 races in, but as NASCAR people, we always got to ask this question. Is there a driver that is showing domination right now? Just when you close your eyes and think about the 2022 season so far, what is the first driver that comes into your mind that's like, he looks really good right now?
I say Larson. I don't think it's a surprise.
Larson.
I would have said it about last year, obviously, and I don't think that would have been an opinion. That would have been a fact. But I mean, look, he was on the pole for the Daytona 500. He won the next week in California. He lost by 1 car length the next week in Vegas. He had to start in the back in Phoenix, but raced to the front again. He may not have contended for that win in the closing laps, but I definitely think that he's the strongest guy. But as we've mentioned, give it 2 weeks. Will that be the same case? Not necessarily.
You don't know for sure.
That's tough. Sorry, I was looking up some stats here to see. See, that's honestly a tough thing to ask because, yeah, Larson is an easy favorite to target. But like I said earlier, you've got guys that are showing a lot of consistency, and I think that is important given all the variables that we've mentioned in this new race car. So I'm going to throw out a guy. I know I mentioned Eric Almirola, Mr. Consistency, but I'm going to throw out Tyler Reddick because we've seen 3 weeks in a row now top 10 finishes, the last 2 weeks, top 3 finishes. I mean, and he's been right there so many times in the past couple seasons that he's been in Cup. And now more than ever, he's really contending for a strong finishing position and if not a win. So I think that's somebody that I'm absolutely keeping an eye on. And if there's anybody in the field that wants it, you know Tyler wants it so bad. And I want it for him. I mean, how great would that be to see him find victory lane?
Well, he's going to have a second leg here soon, so everyone's going to need to watch out.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it. Like we've mentioned before on the show how Tyler Reddick, the driver with one leg, pretty much for the last 2 weeks. Now this man's got both his legs working, no numbness or anything, goes out there and almost wins Phoenix. I'll be honest, that last restart, I didn't even see Tyler until like turn 2 of the first lap. And I was like, where did he come from? Like I saw him in like 6th place and he's up to P2 fighting Briscoe for the win out of nowhere. But I like that. I like that pick though, Jesse. And like, I know, like, we talk about Tyler here. He's a good pal of ours here, but I mean, look at the numbers and the stats though. I mean, we look back at the season, Auto Club, complete domination. It looked as if nobody was going to touch that car. He blows a tire. Something happened to the 24 where the spotter made a bad call or so. Too much damage on the 8, bad run there. Let's look at the Clash. Tyler Reddick looked as if he had the best car at the Clash. He was pulling away from the field in the early stages, and unfortunately, I think what was the issue on him again? I think he money shifted is what they call it, and something broke in the car. I think for Tyler,
I think he had a parts failure. It wasn't the drop, but it was actually from trying to spin the tires under.
That's what it was.
He pushed it too hard a little bit, didn't he? Like Didn't he kind of just push a little too much? She was testing out the next gen car.
Yeah. Which in the old cars, we were used to not having to worry about when you drop the clutch on a pit stop or under caution, spinning the rear tires to get heat in them. That was never anything that broke. But in these next gen cars, in the very first version, they have actually updated that piece since. So I don't think we're going to see that anymore. But there was a little bit of driveline brittleness when it came to spinning the tire. So that bit him and I think 1 or 2 other guys at the Clash too, actually, which is why they made that adjustment. But hopefully we won't see that anymore. But yeah, Tyler's had a strong start to the year. And I'm going to argue this. Is RCR as strong as Hendrick is right now as an organization? I'm going to say no. So I think RCR has an opportunity to get there and to flex the muscle that Hendrick currently is. And I believe that Tyler is a unique enough talent in that equipment that he will be able to dominate when RCR is ready to dominate. I think that Tyler is as confident, as agile on the track, moving his line around as Larson is. I think that that's not something you see in every driver, but Tyler has that. So when RCR is at that point of superior equipment able to dominate, Tyler's not going to have any problem being able to do that. So I'm really impressed with what he's been able to do the last few weeks, considering that RCR isn't at Hendrick's level yet. But with this next gen car, maybe they hit that special something and Tyler clicks off 6 wins this summer. I wouldn't count it out.
Something else that I think, sorry, just to make another, addition to that, that's working in Tyler's favor this year is this race car. And that's just point blank, this car is going to work for some drivers and this car is going to be a greater challenge for others because driving style varies across the board. But a guy like Tyler Reddick, who, like you said, Kaz, we've seen for so long have so much, he's so comfortable trying different things on the racetrack like Kyle Larson. He's so willing to push the limits with a car like this where you don't have to worry about as much damage if you scrape the wall and you try to run the high line or you get a little more aggressive in there. I think that plays to the kind of driver that Tyler is. And there's guys, like I heard an interview today with Alan Gustafson say that like they feel like on that 19, this car just isn't playing to Chase Elliott's strengths. So I think, to use that as an example, this car is playing Tyler's strengths and it's gonna click soon. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them find a lot of success.
Well, one thing I will mention here, what's one thing in common with the last 3 winners of the Cup Series? They have a big dirt racing background. And what we mentioned about this car is that it puts more power into the driver's hand where it's more on the driver's side. Like you mentioned earlier with driver's talent is what is showing right now with these cars because it is brand new. These teams are still trying to figure out the special ingredients to make these cars fit, not only for the driver, but for the team's research and everything as well. So it's a lot of it's going to the driver's hand. We've seen Alex Bowman, who's been picking up a lot of dirt racing lately. He's been handling these cars very well. He won Vegas. Kyle Larson, big dirt racing background. He wins. And now we have Chase Briscoe. Big dirt racing background as well, let alone we saw Tyler Reddick up there as well. It just goes to show you that this car is giving more back to the driver. It's showing that driver's talent pick back up. And we're noticing the kind of like the what's that saying? The cream rising to the top or so. I don't know. I can't remember the saying right now. I'm
something about creamed corn and
cream corn, which yeah. I don't know.
I'm from East Tennessee. That's how it is where I'm from.
That's what it is.
Close enough. And yeah, you're right. It comes back to that ability to adapt. When you're driving on dirt, lap to lap, the track surface is changing. Every time somebody runs over a line on dirt, the track's different. Sometimes the groove goes from the bottom to the top, to the middle, back to the top, and finishes the race on the bottom. And you have to be able to see that, adapt to that, and nail your line. Because driving the top versus the bottom is a whole different art. And those dirt guys can swap back and forth lap to lap like it's nothing. Now you take the next gen car and it seems to slow everything down. It's a new car at a new track every week. They're trying to figure this out, but it's not hectic lap to lap changing. It's week to week. For them, this is easy. They're used to doing this. They're used to adjusting their driving style and being able to learn on the fly from a lot of information. And that's what this season's going to be about in Cup. And you see them already rising to the top here early on.
I wouldn't be surprised to see another dirt guy find success this weekend in Atlanta on a brand new racing surface.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked one bit. And speaking of cream rising to the top, if that is the saying that I am thinking of right here, let's go over to the Xfinity side, because if there is one team that is rising to the top or is still showing that they're at the top, it's Junior Motorsports. You know, when we're looking at this Xfinity race right now, guys, JRM is continuing their dominating fashion right now, along with the Noah Gragson win at Phoenix, which not surprised of the winner, but just seeing the domination from that 9 team and the consistency so far, there's a lot to talk about with this race. And of course, Kaz, we got to talk about your race. I know the West Coast did not treat you that well and whatnot, but I know there's going to be some good things for you down the road. We're going to recover from those woes, but kind of going into this race and whatnot, you know, we saw some heavy hitters that looked like they had a chance to win. We saw Noah Gragson up there. Trevor Bayne was a name that I was looking at too, who could go up there and win the race. And again, something happens to Trevor Bayne where he could have won a race and it would have been such an amazing story right there. But Noah Gragson, just let's think about that name for a second. This guy has the most wild and energetic personality in the garage in NASCAR right now, which is huge for the sport. I love it. But we noticed as he was moving up in the Xfinity series, we noticed that aggression of his. We noticed how his aggressiveness sometimes would pay off, but sometimes it wouldn't pay off. But I've noticed something about Noah earlier, just watching him this season. The aggressiveness is still there, but the maturity is picked up. And I've noticed that in his driving. I said it a couple weeks ago, like after, I think it was after Las Vegas, I said, yo, watch Noah Gragson this year because there's just something different about him. And what did we see at Phoenix? We saw a calm, cool, collected Noah Gragson in some heavy battles, lead the most laps in dominating fashion, and still shows that energetic and wild personality with the coolest victory lane celebrations ever. I mean, crazy stuff. So after this Xfinity race, would Noah Gragson be your early favorite for the Xfinity title right now?
I wouldn't count him out. I think he's one of the unique drivers that you see his personality outside the race car, inside the race car. He is the same driver on track as off the track. Like, he is energetic, fun, a little quirky, and sometimes a little overly aggressive. We've seen that absolutely over the past few years. But I think that he is getting more mature. I think he's settling in and finding his groove. And I think that's important for him, because with that quirky personality comes along with, all right, if you're going to make it to the Cup Series, you need a sponsor and an owner to take you seriously, to feel like you're truly the most qualified guy for the job. And it's hard with Noah's fun personality to be able to walk into a boardroom seriously and assert yourself as that guy. So you have to let your performance on track speak for itself for your success, and then have people accept your fun personality. But obviously your performance has to lead that. And I clearly, going into this year, so far he's been the most consistent driver across any of the series so far as success. He's finished in the top 3, I think, all 4 races with an average finish of 2.0. If I'm him talking about meetings for next year, that's a pretty good resume to walk through the door with. And I think that you're going to get a lot more people that are willing and patient with your wild personality when you can say, yeah, but look, I get the job done every weekend. So far, he's doing that. So title favorite, it's a little early to tell. I think that if he continues to grow and become more mature in be able to keep his head cool during races, I think he could be a title favorite. We just came from Phoenix. That's what you need to win the title. You need to win Phoenix. So obviously we know the team is prepared. The car is good. He can get the job done there. So yeah, he could be our champion this year. I think it's going to be all about him and his mental preparation this year to be able to put himself in the position to win the championship in November, be able to keep his head cool. So the jury's still out on that. But the start to this season tells me that he can absolutely do it. Now we just have to see if he does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maturity is the key there, and we're seeing it. And we're seeing it in the stats, like you said, Kaz, the consistency alone and the ability to have those top finishes and run up there and not ruin that for himself because he feels like he needs to push it for a win. He's getting the consistent top runs. He finally got that win that he needed there at Phoenix. And I have to wonder, and I don't know, I'd be interested to ask Noah, but getting that first taste of the championship at the end of last season, I wonder if that did something to him when it came to the way his mentality in approaching this. And of course it's maturity, but maturity combined with being so close. He finished 3rd last year. I just have to wonder. It's definitely an interesting thing to ask, but an early favorite, definitely one of. But when you've got a series with guys like Ty Gibbs, who's already got 5 Xfinity Series wins I think he's got 13 starts in the series or something ridiculous like that. But I mean, Noah has 6 in his entire career. So it's tough to compare there an early favorite when you've got so many strong contenders in the Xfinity Series.
See, but I think that maturity, like you mentioned, that's the big key right here, though, because when we compared, if like you said, Ty Gibbs, who easily he's going to be a contender for the playoffs. We know that for a fact. Ty Gibbs is very, very talented, but it's that maturity thing that you mentioned about, though, because I think 2 years ago, this Ty Gibbs we see now was Noah Gragson 2 years ago, where Noah would kind of drive in there and put his nose on a car and cause a little accident to happen. We saw it in Atlanta last year with Daniel Hemrick. We saw that whole thing on pit road, but I think that was a big wake-up call for Noah. I think Phoenix, the championship race, having him be in that situation, kind of understand what it takes to win a championship, it kind of got on him a little bit. And like, it's like you mentioned, Kaz, too, if you want to make it to the Cup Series with a great organization, have a long career, not only do you have to have the results on the track, but you got to show that you're the guy on the track and off the track that's going to do it for your partners, the crew, and everyone who's involved as well. And that maturity is definitely showing away from the track too. Just noticing his interviews and everything as well. He just seems more upbeat, more, shoulders back and everything, and like really showing like, hey, I'm the guy for the job here. Because the Xfinity Series is an amazing series, but every driver's goal is to make it to the Cup Series one day. That's the end goal right there. And no one knows that he's been in the Xfinity Series. Is this his third or fourth season full time in the Xfinity Series? I think this is his fourth year.
I think it might be
his fourth year.
Fourth year. So we've seen guys like Tyler Reddick, who had 2 full-time years, go on to the Cup Series now. Austin Cindric, I think, ran 2 full-time years, went to the 3 years right there. Cole Custer, I think 2, Christopher Bell, etc. So no one knows that his time in the Xfinity Series won't be for long. So he needs to go out there and show that he's the guy who can take a Cup program to that next level on the track and off the track. And I think the start to this series so far for him is just incredible. Like 4 top 3s in a row in a very stacked field of competition when your teammates are Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer, let alone you got colleague racing, Joe Gibbs. I mean, it's very impressive to me to see that maturity grow on him. So I'll ask this about the 9 camp and everything, because this seems to be the big topic coming from this Phoenix races. What has changed that 9 camp besides the maturity? Because I know there's a brand new crew chief on the box, Luke Lambert, with a lot of background that could be helping this whole thing.
He could be playing psychologist too with Noah Gragson. That's one thing. Like, your spotter and your crew chief as a driver kind of work together to be your psychologist. They have to be able to keep your head in it during the race. They have to be able to prepare you going into the race. Racing is a lot of confidence. You have to be confident and believe that you can do what you have to do to go out there and win. It's not easy to do that. You have to take risks. You have to put your car in precarious positions. You need to be confident to be able to do that. So maybe Luke Lambert is building great cars and helping Noah really get his head in the game and be able to have that success. And I've heard crew chiefs say this many, many times, so I'm going to take some examples here. Some of the most successful guys so far this year across the series. You've got Noah Gragson, you've got Tyler Reddick, you've got Austin Cindric really turning heads. What do these 3 drivers have in common? They've crashed a lot of Xfinity cars. It's always easier to pull a driver back from aggression than it is to take a driver who isn't aggressive and try to teach that to them. I think any crew chief would always work with a driver that's overly ambitious, overly aggressive, and needs the reins pulled back a little bit. Those are the most successful guys. They crash early, but when things start clicking and they figure it out and they figure out that aggression level that they need to have, they click off wins. And we've seen that now with several drivers. And Noah looks like he may just be the next guy to hit that stride.
I agree with you, Kaz. I definitely, not to downplay anything that Luke Lambert is bringing to that 9 team, but I think that what first came to mind for me was looking at junior motorsports as a whole now. And Justin Allgaier, he's the veteran there. We know him. We love him. He's the guy. He is junior motorsports. He's the foundation. But now the rest of the program there, you've got Noah Gragson, who very quickly went from being the young, immature, new guy to one of the experienced junior motorsports drivers. And people like Sam Mayer, who are also finding some consistent success very early on with this team, are looking to Gragson. And a guy like Josh Berry, who came in and did nothing more than dip his toes in the water of junior motorsports and find victory lane last year in the Xfinity Series. Gregson's got to be feeling that. he went very quickly, like I said, from being the young gun over there to being somebody that's not only looked up to, but is expected to succeed and perform, given the new guys on the team are doing so as well. So that's got to take a toll on a mentality expectation for him.
Yeah, and I like what you said right there about the whole mentality thing. You know, Luke Lambert's someone, like we said, not trying to take anything away from Luke Lambert, someone who has a lot of experience as being a crew chief and has seen all types of different drivers and whatnot. And I think one thing about the chemistry of those two to take away is, if anyone noticed in practice, Noah Gragson, who is very big on social media, who pays attention to a lot of things, there was a clip shared on Twitter this week of a certain dialogue between Ryan Newman and Luke Lambert from a few years back, where Ryan and Luke had a very heated exchange over the radio. And Noah decides to mess with Luke and copy word to word everything that Ryan said to Luke. Luke found it super funny, but it kind of goes to show you the chemistry those two already have as a unit. And it's kind of like you mentioned with mentality, you know, like, and I think Kaz, you can definitely vouch for this as well. When you have a crew chief that you can like link up with as your buddy, like, you know, your best friend, someone you can look to, that bond, that chemistry can pay off down the road tremendously, you know. And if this is a good combo down the road, who knows what Noah and Luke and that whole 9K and Junior Motorsports can do too. Because Sam Mayer, I think Sam's going to win a race this year. I think he definitely will. It's going to take a little while. I think it will come like maybe around the summertime or so. But Justin Allgaier, you know, he's the face of Junior Motorsports. Noah Gragson's trying to, you know, evolve his career. You know, he's growing. Sam Mayer's over there. Josh Berry is having a very consistent year so far. He's going to find victory lane as well. So when you have the team as a whole working very well together and being very successful, the possibilities are endless right now. And Noah's starting to find that as well with his maturity and also just showing his speed on the track. And talking about speed on the track here as we move away from Noah Gragson, a name I want to talk about and give another shout out to is Mr. Trevor Bayne in that 18 car. Once again, looked as if he may have had a car that could have won a race. And I think it was a pit road speeding penalty, or it might have been a equipment out of the box. I can't remember exactly what the penalty was for that last one, but Trevor Bayne comes back to finish fourth right here. And Kaz, we talked about Trevor last week. We talked about how, you know, this is a guy who is still young, who can still have a NASCAR career and has this opportunity ahead of him here to show that he can be the guy to win some races and a championship for a team, you know. So as the weeks are kind of going forward here with Trevor Bayne, his Xfinity stout, you know, with another solid finish, but yet again, not finding victory lane. Are you worried for Trevor Bayne, you know, so far of not finding that win? Are you calm, cool, and collected now, knowing that you have the speed, it's going to happen? What's your take on that so far?
We just don't know yet. I think we need to see him win. That's the key here, because we've seen he has the speed. I didn't doubt that going in, though. I don't think anybody did. We've seen that the 18 team has the speed. We didn't doubt that going in. But will he win? That's what we need to see. I was in the race, so obviously I didn't see exactly. But if the pit road penalty was something on the driver, then you could look at that and circle it and say, is that why they didn't win this weekend? Maybe it was. And that may be a mental block. You know, being able to mitigate mistakes as a driver is one of the biggest parts of winning races. So if that was on him, then he's got to look to the next race and say, okay, I'll probably be fast again, probably be fast enough to win again, but I got to have a smooth race. I can't make these mistakes. That's his job, is not to make that. If it was on the team's end, then leaving this race, I'm even more confident as Trevor than I was coming in, because I'm like, look at that. I drove back up through the field, still got a top 5. Like, oh, we got this. I'm going to win the next one. You go into it with that sort of confidence. So I think the key here is going to be about execution from him and his team. And if they both execute, yeah, that 18 car should be in victory lane. I don't see why it wouldn't be. So I don't know what Trevor's next race is, but we'll keep looking. We'll keep seeing if he goes out and he's able to take care of business and put it in victory lane.
So it was a speeding penalty, which is what got him. Which I don't know though, Cass, because then I wonder, well, is that at the same time then just inexperience or not inexperience? That was not the right word, but it's not having been in the car in a long time, you know, getting back into the groove of things. I don't know. I mean, or is it just that's where we're going to trend now with it's tough. It's tough to say.
You can look at it two different ways. It's like, well, maybe it was an error because of the pressure, because he's been out of the car for a while and now he's got a chance to win. It could have simply been a mistake. But at the same time, you could say, all right, he was pushing it as hard as he can. And as a competitor, that's what your job is. That's what you're there to do. So it's hard to say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Obviously, the result ended up bad, but should he be pushing every last bit, whether it's on the track or on pit road? Yeah, he has to. To win an Xfinity race, you have to. There's no way that you could sit back and relax and just let the win come to you. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. So, you know, I'm sure he did show his team that he's pushing as hard as he can, and that's a good thing. But the next race, he needs to be able to show that he can continue to do that and do so without stepping over that line to be able to get the job done.
I would say especially.
Also,
I'll go. Oh, you want to go?
No. I just was going to say, I also think it's important to note he finished 4th. So we're sitting here talking about, you know, it didn't work out in his favor. He top 5 finish. I mean, I think that's still something to say.
It's still a great finish. And I think the reason why we're kind of talking about this is I've noticed in the past with Joe Gibbs, and there's a lot of talent that's trying to get into the NASCAR level. I just noticed so much talent that has gotten in Joe Gibbs equipment that I feel like deserves a chance to move on to the next level, but they kind of don't get that opportunity. And then there's a lot of things moving around, you know, for example, like, I mean, he did make it, but Harrison Burton, I thought, in my honest opinion, was going to be a Joe Gibbs driver, you know, in the Cup Series one day, but he moved on to the Wood Brothers. And I was really shocked by that. I wasn't expecting that one bit, but it's because there was really nothing there in the Cup Series for the Gibbs side of things. And Burton was ready to move on to the Cup level. I think he was kind of telling himself, I'm ready to go. Let's do this thing. And I think Trevor Bayne he's pushing it. Like you said, Kaz, I'd be pushing it too, because I mean, look at this field now. You got Noah Gragson, who looks as if he's kind of getting to a point where this may be the best we see him in the Xfinity car coming up here. Like, he's getting really consistent. JRM's doing really well. Joe Gibbs' teammates, Ty Gibbs, for crying out loud. So he has to go out there and push this thing, because Ty Gibbs is going to be right there on his door or right in front of him going for these wins and a title. It's just a stacked field of competition. So if you're Trevor Bayne, who's been out of the car for a little while, you got to go out there and show what you can do, because if you got this opportunity in front of you, you go win a race or two, who knows what could happen? There could be a team in the Xfinity Series. It may not be Joe Gibbs. It's like, hey, Trevor, we really like you. We saw what you did in that 18 car. How would you like to come full time here? And who knows? There might be some sponsorship there that would love to help him out. It could be a resurgence for Trevor Bayne here to get back into NASCAR with the right field. So, you know, I think we're talking about too is because this was an announcement that I don't think none of us were expecting. I wasn't expecting Trevor Bayne to get a 7-8 race schedule with Joe Gibbs, but I'm happy for him though, because he's such a nice guy who I think never really got that opportunity to show what he could do in top equipment. And here it is. And he's looking at this is my chance to show that I belong in this sport with a competitive car and a competitive team. So, you know, I think the speeding penalty may have came from some nerves, Kaz. I think it may have came from some nerves, because it was kind of near the end of that race, and he kind of knew, I have to get this right. I got to get every possible 10th I can on pit road here so I can win this race. He made a mistake, but he is actually racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The race was actually added onto his schedule. So originally, I think it was a 7-race deal or so, and I think he got an extra race in there. So he will be racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway here. So that could be where Trevor Bayne wins. You never know. Brand new configuration, and we're gonna see how it goes for Trevor Bayne. But that's just my input on it. What's up?
You made a good point in this, and something you said kind of brought something to the forefront of my mind is, might we call this the AJ Allmendinger effect? Seeing AJ Allmendinger come out of a short retirement, get a little bit of a shot to run here part-time for a team, have early success, and that team go, hey, you want to come run full-time? And now he's contending for championships. So you have to believe that guys like Trevor Bayne are seeing what AJ Allmendinger did, and they're seeing opportunity there, but also, to your point, Kaz, pressure.
Yeah, and, you know, this point that nobody probably thinks of, winning is fun. So
is it really? Is it?
We've never been in victory lane, Kaz. Not climbing out, at least. So
if you have briefly retired and you get a chance to come back and win a bunch of races, Yeah, why don't you take that? If you've got the sponsorship to go try, do it. And if you get that shot to run full time, why not? You'll be able to make a living while having the best time of your life. And that's what AJ's doing right now. And he's made it very clear that he is going to quit the second that this stops being fun again. So far, it's been really fun again. So, yeah, Trevor could have that fun this year. And all of a sudden, that takes the pressure off. He goes and he wins, say, his third race here out of these 7. The weight is off of his shoulders and he can enjoy the other races. And the more you're enjoying it, he's probably going to find victory lane more after that. It takes that pressure off. You make less mistakes and all of a sudden you're going to click off wins. So yeah, we could see that from him this year. We could see that this weekend at Atlanta, but that segues us perfectly to what the heck are we going to see at Atlanta? We have no idea.
I'm just ready to see it in person. I'm not going to lie. I cannot wait to be there at the track this weekend and see this all in person. I did get to drive on it. I will say I did get to drive on the new surface, and I'm telling you what, I had to fight the wheel counter in the corner so I didn't go below the apron. That's how much the banking is there. So I'm just excited to see this whole thing. I think Trevor Bayne is going to have a shot at Atlanta. I think so. The way I see it, brand new configuration, not a new car though, same car and everything, but we know Joe Gibbs is going to bring speed. They've been dominant at the 1.5 miles and whatnot. In recent memory of all the Atlanta races I've been to in the Xfinity series, I've always seen a Joe Gibbs car win all the time. So I would feel like Joe Gibbs is going to be good at Atlanta. But speaking of moving on forward to the next week, etc., and looking back, Kaz, we got to talk about your race, man, because I know you wanted to end the West Coast on a good note and everything. Again, I know the TV cameras necessarily weren't following you every single lap. So why don't you break down to us how your race went in that 45 car?
Yeah, we've had speed in the 45 car, especially at California, Vegas. We're a 15th to 18th place car on speed in the race, and we were able to run there, and something silly happened both of those times that prevented us from being able to get that top 15. But I firmly believe in both of those races, we would have finished top 12 or top 10 at the end if we had been around to be able to capitalize on that, because there was some attrition. Phoenix, we had high hopes going in. We probably didn't have quite the same speed that we had the previous 2 weeks. We were about a 20th to 22nd place car in the race. Unfortunately, in stage 3 there, we had a right front tire pop. Goodyear deemed that it was from debris. So just a random bad luck deal. The tire pop going into turn 1. So we hit the wall, and I had cars passing me on the bottom. I couldn't get down quickly enough for pit lane in turn 2. So I had to drive around to come back to pit road. And by that time, with the tire flat, you drag the bottom heim of the sway bar when that tire is flat, and it had sheared it off. So we ended up doing the last 40 laps of the race essentially with no sway bar because it was no longer connected. So that's an integral part of the race car setup. So now we're driving around with our left front tire picking up. We look like a trike out there. So we were no longer on pace. We went a couple laps down. So unfortunate to end our West Coast swing like that, but still, it was really fun getting to race 3 weeks in a row. Some really fun tracks, some of my favorite spots actually. So I'm thrilled about it. I will be back with Alpha Prime Racing here in the summer for an Xfinity race at my home track at New Hampshire. So that I'm very excited for, and wish those guys some luck here. They're on a quest for points for their cars, because you mentioned it a little bit. The Xfinity series is so stacked this year that there are cars DNQing every single week. So in order to feel a little more comfortable about potentially taking a provisional, you want to get your car up in owner points. In fact, Alpha Prime, their other car, had to fall back on a provisional to be able to start the race in Phoenix and maybe also in Vegas. I can't remember. But to be able to move that car up in points gives you that security that if something goes wrong in qualifying, if a mistake is made, or maybe you don't have the speed you hope to have that weekend, you can still at least race both of your cars. So Tommy Joe is going to be in the 45 car this week at Atlanta, and hopefully he can score some good points for the car to help keep it safe, because Alpha Prime Racing is doing something cool this year. They've got some of us wily veterans out there to get points. Myself, Ryan Ellis, Tommy Joe. But they're giving the seat over to some younger, newer, fresher faces as well. They've got Howie DiSavino, Raja Karuth. They've got Sage Karam in the car for some races. So these are guys that are younger. And could they make a mistake in qualifying? Maybe. I mean, they're in the learning process. So it's important for Alpha Prime Racing to get their cars comfortable in points to where they can securely race every weekend and not have to stress about DNQing. So that's a reality of the Xfinity Series this season for about half of the field that goes into qualifying now sweating bullets, which is cool. It's different than what we've had in a lot of years. I think as a driver, you love that pressure. You love needing to succeed. A lot of guys thrive on that. And I think it's a really cool situation and healthy for the series to have teams having to do their best, because you've got teams now that are leasing engines, that are buying newer cars because they have to, because if they don't, they're not going to make any of the races. So now you've got younger guys like a Raja Karuth that can step into the series, and now Alpha Prime Racing is really putting their best foot forward. They are trying to have the best engines they can on their budget. They are trying to get the best cars that they can on their budget. And sure, it's not a full budget, but they're doing everything they can. The days of start and park teams just taking whatever car they can just to go collect the prize money are over right now, because if you take that car, you won't be starting the race, and so you won't be getting any prize money. So it's allowing some of the younger guys who are going to drive for a lower budget team to actually get in better equipment, because all the teams are needing to do that. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's awesome how you touched on how the Xfinity Series, let alone NASCAR, is kind of getting away from the whole start and park thing a little bit. And like, we knew that was a little bit of a problem a few years back. We saw a lot of cars just kind of start and park, take the prize from finishing that race and put that towards their budget. And no one wants to see that in the sport. No one wants to see that. You want to see these cars go out there and run laps and get the best result they possibly can, because that's what the sport's all about, right? We like to see cars go fast, not cars go slow. That's the whole point of this sport and whatnot. But speaking of going fast, Atlanta Motor Speedway next week, new configuration, no more bumpy Atlanta. I'm sad about it. I'm a nostalgic Atlanta fan. That's just who I am. For the past 20 years, been going to the track and everything and seeing these cars get loose and everything. I'm going to miss it, but it's a new day in Atlanta Motor Speedway history, and we got to preview this thing, guys. So let's just talk. We don't know exactly. Jessie's shaking her head. No one knows a thing about this, right? Is it going to be Daytona Speedway Junior? Is it going to be, the old Atlanta, but just new? We don't know. We don't know what is going to happen. So, Jessie, you're shaking your head. So I'm just going to let you take the first chance at this. What's going to happen in Atlanta? Just give me your bold prediction of what you possibly could think happen.
Cool, thanks. I'll take it away. Appreciate that one. Now, what we do know about Atlanta, and you touched on it earlier, is that we've got more banking now in the corners. It's 28 degrees of banking, which is now the highest banked intermediate track that we have on the circuit, and it's much more narrow, much more narrow. So, NASCAR said, and Atlanta Motor Speedway said, the whole point, Kaz and I, we talked about it this week on the pace lap, the whole point of making those changes was to increase pack racing. And then in turn, now we've implemented this double yellow line rule that we only see, like you said, at a Talladega or a Daytona. So what they're pushing for here is more pack racing, more, dare I say, super speedway style racing at Atlanta. That's what we're pushing for. Is that what we're going to see? Kaz, I'll let you tell him if that's what we're going to see or not. You take this one now.
I don't have a clue. And I'm sad to see the old Atlanta go, just like you are, Joey. But I'm sad today. Give me 2 or 3 more days once we see what it looks like. Maybe I've forgotten the old Atlanta. This might be the greatest thing I've ever seen. It might be the best show of the year. I don't know. We don't know what to expect. But I can say this, based on the drivers that have tested the track and their comments and having talked to some of them, the assumption is that it likely will be pack racing like you see on a super speedway. And clearly NASCAR has indicated that they may think that is possible as well, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have implemented this double yellow line rule there. So the guess of everybody who's much smarter than myself going into this weekend is that it's likely going to be pack racing. But we've seen in the past NASCAR make package changes to create pack racing. A few years back in the Xfinity series, they did a drag duct package of super high downforce, lower horsepower at both Indianapolis and Michigan for Xfinity, and Pocono actually, with the attempt to create pack racing. Did we see pack racing? Not even close. At none of those. It wasn't even in the ballpark. It was an interesting race, though. It was a different race than you would have seen at those tracks if they hadn't made that change. But it wasn't a pack per se. You didn't see 2-3 wide for multiple rows sustained traveling around the pack or around the track. So at Atlanta, are we going to see a single to double file race of a chess match of guys trying to move forward and figure out how to do that? Maybe that's what we see instead of a pack. I'm not sure, but I know that none of us will be sure until we actually see somebody take the green flag. Once the trucks and the Xfinity cars have hit the track there and have raced, I'm going to guess your Sunday drivers are going to have a little bit of an idea of what they think they'll expect. Still might be wrong, but until one of those series hits the track, we don't know what we're going to see. So if it is a pack where handling matters more because the track length is a full mile less than Daytona, that might be really cool. That might make for a great race. It might make for an interesting style of racing that nobody's done. And I've said this before on the record, like, you have drivers that grow up racing dirt tracks, short tracks, road courses. Nobody grows up racing super speedways. You find that once you make it to the national level in NASCAR. So those are new to everybody once they turn 18 years old. This is going to be yet a different type of super speedway racing. It may be similar to Daytona, but not exactly the same. So your guys that have raced Daytona for the past 15 years and really are comfortable there in the Cup Series versus your guys that have only done it a few times, they may be leveled out here because there's no advantage to experience now at Atlanta since we don't know what to expect. So I think that you may see a hybrid form of normal racing versus super speedway racing kind of morph together at Atlanta, which is something nobody's done before. So if it races a little differently, like I think it will, I don't think that it's going to race straight up Daytona, couldn't tell a difference. It's not going to be that. But if it does become that hybrid, well, heck, you might find a new driver or set of drivers that really take to this style. Because you think about a super speedway, I've got a list off the top of my head. Who are the best super speedway racers? Well, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano. You just rattle those off.
Bubba Wallace too. Yeah, Bubba Wallace as well.
Yeah,
Blaney's been successful.
Blaney. Yeah.
Very. And some of those guys are ones you would mention at other tracks too, but others, maybe you think of them as super speedway racers. Like, for instance, last year, Matt DiBenedetto. You didn't really go into any weekend thinking, oh, Matt DiBenedetto is probably going to win. But you thought about Daytona and said, hey, maybe Matt DiBenedetto wins this weekend. So you have
Michael McDowell. Same thing.
You have drivers that are good at that style. And now that Atlanta may be a little different from that, maybe you're going to have a driver like, say, Cole Custer, where all of a sudden the next 8 years that we go to Atlanta, you think, oh, yeah, Cole Custer's probably going to win. That could happen. That could happen with somebody completely random in the field that all of a sudden says, oh, my God, I figured this style of racing out really suits me. And they go and dominate the next few years. So this weekend, maybe our first look into what that is.
Oof. All the info you're dropping on me, man, like all the possibilities is crazy right now. I like what you went with that. We're going to see something very different. Like, I think we're going to see something very different and very crazy. Could it be the old Atlanta down the road? We don't know. Could it be Talladega Daytona racing? We don't know. We don't know one bit. I think Friday they have a practice day on Friday. I think the Cup cars are hitting the track on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to try to go and be there for that because I really want to see this in person and see what we're going to see on Sunday, because that's just how much I love the sport. But, you know, we always do this. Give me a winner. I know it's a crazy prediction. Who did you guess last week, Kaz? You guessed Kyle Larson, right?
I think
no, Kevin Harvick. You guessed Kevin Harvick. And you were close. You were really, really close. I guessed Martin Truex Jr. I was honestly shocked by the way they ran. Was pretty shocked by that. I picked Truex after that championship race last year. So I was wrong. Kaz, you won last week. Congratulations to you. You were the closest out of all of us. But none of us would have picked Chase Briscoe, though. So moving on to Atlanta here. You got to give me a winner, though. Everything's up in the air. You just got to throw a winner out there. I'll let you go first, Kaz. What you got?
All right. I'm going to throw out the most bizarre one ever. Well, frankly, not bizarre, but you may not think of him this year. I'm going Brad Keselowski.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I
saw of RFK at Daytona. I think they're going to have a good low drag package for this weekend. Obviously, Brad is incredibly good at racing super speedway style races, and he's a smart guy, really, really smart, really like engineering, train of thought. I think he's going to figure this place out. I think he'll do well.
I like that pick.
2 wins at Atlanta. It's not a bad pick. Yeah.
Well, yes, true, but we can erase that whiteboard on Atlanta now. So I guess we don't really know about Atlanta. I'm looking at Daytona for him, honestly. That's what I'm going off of.
Okay. All right, Jessie, do you want to go next or you want me to go next? So what do you think?
I'll go next because I have a feeling that I'm not going to steal your pick because I'm going to kind of throw a wild card out there as well, just for the sake of we don't know what we're seeing. So why not?
Okay.
Why not? But I'm going to go Joey Logano. And for a similar reason that Cass said, we're looking at super speedway racing, whatever. But what I'm looking at here is inaugural events. And I know that this isn't an inaugural event, but at the same time, it's entirely new to everybody.
I agree.
And he won the Clash. He won the dirt race at Bristol last year. He's got a knack for going out there and figuring these things out. I don't know if he has a knack for putting himself in the right position during these inaugural events or what it is, but I'm just going to keep an eye on him because in a race where we really don't know where to look or what to look for, he might be one to pay attention to.
Smart pick. I
like the pick. I do. Logano's got a good plate background. Again, we don't know whether he'll put himself in the best situation or in the bad situation. We don't know how this race is going to go, but that's a solid pick. Both of your picks are good, but I'm going to give you an absolute wild card. All right. You're not going to guess this one, but I like the equipment he's in. I like the package we're racing. He has shown what he can do at these types of tracks. He ran in the Daytona 500 and looked as if he may have had a shot to win, but he was involved in a wreck. He's making his first start for this team. Noah Gragson with the upset at Atlanta Motor Speedway in a colleague car. I like Noah's plate background. He has shown what he can do in plate racing. He's very aggressive, yet very patient and makes good moves and whatnot. He's in a colleague car, and I know colleague necessarily hasn't had the best cup record yet, but they've shown at plate racing with these kind of packages that they bring good equipment all the time. And why did they put Noah in this race? Why are they putting Noah in this race for his first start? Because he is very good at plate package type racing. So if that is what this racing is going to be, Noah Gragson with the upset win. And he's going to continue his momentum. Hey, top 3 in the first 4 Xfinity races. He's going to Atlanta with the plate style package racing. He's got the momentum. He's feeling really good. Noah Gragson for the upset Cinderella story. I made my words, but I'm going with it because I like taking those bold picks.
And
his teammate Justin Haley is an incredible super speedway racer, so you have to imagine he's got to learn something from working alongside him as well. I mean,
yeah,
it's a bold pick, but I respect it.
Yeah, I mean, I finished 6th in that 16 car last year at Talladega. We know it can do it, so I'm not against your pick. It's bold, but it's interesting. So we'll see how our 3 guys do this weekend.
Absolutely, guys. And I think with that wraps up the episode of All Clear here. We talked about Phoenix. We previewed the questionable Atlanta Motor Speedway. I don't even know if we call it a preview. We just call it to take a long shot and see what happens at the end of the day at this point. A great time for sure. Lots to talk about. And I'm sure Atlanta Motor Speedway is going to bring lots to talk about for sure. We don't know what's going to happen with these 3 series. But first and foremost, we'd like to thank Jessie so much for joining us today for the first episode of All Clear. Jessie, I hope you had a great time and whatnot. Jessie, where may people find you on social media and where can they follow your adventures in NASCAR?
Well, you can find me on all social media platforms at its_jpunch. That's pretty much Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. But you can see me at the racetrack. So actually, I was going to tell you, Joey, I'll be at Atlanta this weekend. I'll be there Friday. I'm splitting some time between 2 tracks. So I will definitely be there Friday and Sunday. So we'll have to meet up and say hey.
Awesome, for sure. We definitely need to and whatnot. But a great episode for sure, guys. Please make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and of course check us out on YouTube here. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. He is Kaz Gralla, she is Jessie Punch, and I am Joey Stone. Thank you so much for watching All Clear, and now you are of course all clear. See you guys next time.
Kaz Gralla is the winner, the youngest driver to win at Daytona in NASCAR National Touring Series history.
Joey Stone just picked up his first career win. Holy cow, what a finish.